You wake up as President of the United States, what would you do? If you live in the United States, see if your city/town/county government has an app or 311 service to report such issues. If they have an app or website, take a picture of it with the yardstick, tape measure next to it as well. There are ones where I live in the city, county are pretty good at fixing things once notified. I reported a pothole a couple months back. Didn't think anything would happen. It continued to get worse and worse. Then, one day, I checked on its status and they had assigned it a work order. It was fixed within the week. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Fun little fact, the lead singer of the Presidents of the United States of America is now a solo artist who sings children's songs, and goes by the name of Casper Baby Pants. I only know this because I have a toddler and he popped up on some of my playlist recommendations. No, leak onto actual news sources so people lose faith in them, and while they have no faith in the news, create your own news source, and then in your 2 terms, use your news source to convince everyone that the term limit is stupid and abolish it. Then make yourself supreme rulers of America. There's probably top secret shit there, but the really boring kind. You find a bunch of airplane components designed to emulate the flight and radar signatures of other aircraft. You find a bunch of top secret reflective hulls for new UAVs. Some scientist is whispering in on how they managed to make stealth aircraft able to fly 2 whole hours without pinging modern lidar systems. You sit at your desk in the Oval Office tapping your foot impatiently. A man in a black suit and sunglasses enters the room and hands you a manila envelope with top secret stamped on it. Finally, you exclaim in triumph. You open the envelope with a wide grin. As you skim through the pages, your grin fades, your eyes widen, and your jaw drops. Holy dash! You mutter. You look back at the man in black and say, "The American people cannot know the truth." "That is the correct answer, Mr. President," he calmly states. "So, what would have happened if I had given the wrong answer?" You ask. Refer to the section on Mr. Epstein. He states as he walks away. "I'd spend one day a month working with the Innocence Project to pardon people that were likely wrongfully convicted yet failed to get trial. Apart from that, I know enough to know that most people overestimate the actual power of the executive branch, but my expertise isn't really in politics or policy. I'd probably spend time making sure I had a competent cabinet and group of advisors to get me up to speed. I'd pull a Trump butt in reverse, write a bunch of executive orders for social reformation and drugs legalization, police pay and unions, etc. Are any of them even gonna stand a snowball's chance in hell? Probably not, unless I have a sympathetic Congress and Senate somehow, but it'll raise awareness and set precedent for the next one, so, and maybe sway some people towards things like UB, universal health care, etc. I definitely project an everyman type vibe as I am a very simple human. Writing a few anti-corruption executive, you sure as hell know they would never make it to Congress. Orders would be an amazing use of time. Stop legalized bribing, lobbying, stop politicians from running 12+ times and being a lifetime politician. Multiple choice voting on things like president. Just things to make people's choice matter in elections, and have politicians genuinely act in the people's best interest. A fun fact, I worked for the U.S. Census Bureau last year interviewing people who didn't complete the census online. As part of that position, I had to swear an oath as every federal employee does, but I also had to swear a second oath of non-disclosure of personal information. By law, the information I collected from people can never be disclosed to anyone for 72 years. That includes other Census Bureau employees and other government agencies such as ICE, the FBI, CIA, or any agency regardless of need to know. The person who swore me in pointed out that the law has no limitation on authority and no backdoor to access that information, which means if the President of the United States asked me the name of someone who lives at an address I went to, I legally cannot share that information, and both myself and the President would be in violation of the law. But not only can I not share the information, The president has no legal mechanism in which to access your individual answers to the census questionnaire and will not for 72 years after you answer it, at which point it becomes public information. Get ready for the day, and if there's nothing on my schedule, write an executive order removing cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act. Then eat something, I guess. Edit, I would probably make Bernie Sanders my VP. Sign other executive orders such as, making it more difficult for other elected officials to stay in office past a 3-4-year terms, making it more difficult for Republicans move polling locations in areas unfavorable to them, as well as new restructuring of voting rights to curb modern Jim Crow laws, expanding Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and unemployment, welfare, improving infrastructure including outlawing all asbestos products. Believe it or not, it's still legal as long as the amounts aren't high, rededicating a small amount of military funds to improve sidewalks and roads, put a cap on rent amounts in large cities, limit the NSA's surveillance of private citizens, and start a program to lower insulin and prescription drug prices by trading with Canada and penalizing big pharmaceutical companies. Oh, and I'd obviously take a piss before getting started with the day, as others have pointed out I'd need. Well, after having a well-balanced, delicious breakfast and explaining to my wife that I have no idea what the hell is going on, I do my best to make my way to Capitol Hill, where I'd cockpunch McConnell right out in the lobby in front of everyone, and then head back to the Oval to take care of whatever actual important shit needs to get done. Finally, a practical answer. I'd probably immediately implement a whole bunch of illegal covert programs in an enthusiastic but ill-advised effort to fix democracy, and thereby make everything much worse. Thank goodness I'm no more likely to become president than some retarded bankrupt real estate salesman. Oh wait. Abolish first past the post-voting and mandate ranked runoff voting. Make gerrymandering illegal and mandate a framework to redraw the maps using some non-biased statistical model. Leave everything else to experts, and say goodbye to my family because I will be assassinated by everyone with a shred of power for making those changes. Don't need to attempt any other things like reform the police or banish McConnell to the northernmost tip of Alaska, because if this is fixed, the system might fix itself. Terms limits for all elected officials. Probably max would be 2 terms, 4 years like the presidency. Set the pay for any elected official to cap out at their state's wage mean excluding business owners that live in state. Pay raises can only be made via statewide vote of the people. Make it illegal for any elected official to own stock in a business while in office to prevent conflict of interest. Anyone elected into office must first have their personal finances audited by every group possible, IRS, FBI, CIA, to find offshore accounts. Make it law that all financial records of elected officials are public knowledge as long as they are in office. Rewrite tax law to make it easier for Joe Schmoen to eliminate loopholes used by the super rich and corporations and try to push it into use. Then in a following State of the Union, name any lawmaker who voted it down. Edit, so many of you have informed me that the president can't actually enact any of this. Fine. I would push all of these ideas as president and introduce legislation to enact these ideas, then I'd call out every politician who voted against them in a public setting like a website or a SOTA address. Term limits in many positions is counterintuitive. It works in the executive branch so that chief executive power is not consolidated for life like a king or czar. In the legislative branch it would only increase corruption and weaken the power of the people. Skilled, trusted politicians would no longer exist. Anyone who says they don't want a career politician for anything ever has no idea what they're talking about. Career politicians are created because of the people's right to keep electing them, and with them comes the development of staffers, protégés, a treasure trove of legislative knowledge, and a network for corralling votes even across party lines. Instead, you would get endless waves of noob after noob, and all of them worse than the others. Some progressives short-sightedly think it would be their way in. They are wrong. Right now progressive ideas are held back by establishment leaders who, maybe or maybe not foolishly, catering to safe and shallow waters, trying to court swing voters and anti-Trump Republicans with term limits. That's out the window, and you're running against whatever hotshot gets full-fledged corrupted support. There's no Elizabeth Warrens and John McCains. In a 20-year span you would just get like 4 renditions of young tobacco industry plants. Term limits get skill and eliminate the development of entire schools of thoughts and any chance of progression. Campaign financing and lobbying reform are the only avenues. Terms limits for all elected officials. Probably max would be 2 terms. 4 years like the presidency. This would be welcomed by the lobbying industry in ways you wouldn't believe, because this essentially means there is no more career politician. Any new politician has to start from scratch, and has no experienced colleagues to lean on. The best a senator can get, for example, is another senator with 6 years of experience, or he can use the network and experience of the lobby dude that has been in this gig for 30+ years. With the vast network of contacts, politics is 90% networking. Also, inexplicably, jobs like sheriff and judge are elected positions in the U.S. Restore the fairness doctrine to make news outlets only report verifiable facts and impose fines on those who don't. Try to get an amendment passed banning for-profit prisons, tax for-profit churches that make over $100,000 a year and/or interfere in politics. Restore net neutrality. Offer financial incentives for telecommunication companies to expand coverage in rural areas. Threaten congressmen and senators with term limits until they passed Medicaid for all. Stop funding ineffective charter schools and invest heavily in public education. Erase student loan debt and subsidize college tuition for students at or above a 3.0 GPA or for students wishing to enter trade or vocational schools. Expand mental health care infrastructure in rural areas. The fairness doctrine only applied to airwaves, so the radio. I get what you're saying and support expanding that idea to cable and online news groups. It starts getting into First Amendment issues, but I definitely push to hold news agencies that spread misinformation via talking heads criminally liable. What happens on late night Fox News, Newsmax, and is hurting Americans. Well, I'd print a copy of the Constitution, organize a team meeting to meet the core staff and get updated on current agendas, ask for some interns to prepare a few memos on current hot topic issues and ways to solve them, while I then meet with the members of cabinet and get updates on their priorities. By the end of the day I'd like to have a good sense of what my team was working on. By the end of the week I'd like to have a sense of what priorities were for the next 100 days and evaluating that progress. By the end of the first 100 days I'd also like to have met key ally states and maybe made a speech or two about how everything's going. But yeah, I'd basically get organized and try to surround myself with smart people and evaluate as I go how the job was going. Oh, and I'd also look up what presidents before me have done well and what leaders in other countries were up to as a benchmark. That's important. Flat tax for any entity making over $2 million a year. Legalize weed. Abolish the student loan forgiveness programs and forgive all loans on it. Student loans going forward have 5% fixed interest rate. Subsidize colleges to lower tuition rates. Expand unions. No more tax dollars for lawsuits against government employees. There's a really good taco place in Columbia Heights, just up the Green Line. Another one in Petworth. Another one in Mount Rainier. Kinda neat the West Hyattsville stop. I'd have lunch pre-ordered from all the best taco spots on the Green Line, call up all my buddies around town and order a bucket of weed from my guy. I know I could get a card, but I'm loyal. He's been good to me over the years. Then I'd put Zach in charge while I fuck off and let my day take its course. Get the truth about aliens. Maybe bring in Seth Rogen to make sure I don't forget anything. Immediately put my children in key positions to siphon money into the family coffers. Appoint greedy ruthless what's as head of all agencies so that they can make money and give me a cut. Immediately use federal law enforcement to get secrets and dirt on both friends and enemies, so maintain control of them and constantly spew hate and divisive comment into a mic or social media so that no one is really sure what the fuck is going on or if they are even living in reality anymore. Increase our space exploration funding by 1,000x. Beat SpaceX to Mars, the Moon and Venus. Colonize all of them and start making gas stations to get to further. End all foreign wars and engagements. Bring all of our troops home. Reinstate the travel ban from terrorist nations. Indict a massive list of war criminals. Cut the deal to buy Mexico. Go after the cartels. End all drug and human trafficking. And all political parties. No more two-party system. Line item bills. Cut all congressional holidays down to just Thanksgiving and Christmas. Cut all salaries of all congressmen down to $0. Require all congressmen to vote on every bill. You miss a day, you lose your job. Every congressman is required to show proof of all income sources. Companies are not allowed to make donations anymore. Slowly start phasing out Congress and the president altogether. Start work on the philosopher king leader. Pardon Snowden, Chelsea Manning and Julian Assange and pay them restitution. Make Snowden my Secretary of Security. Fine Facebook, Reddit, Twitter, Amazon, Disney, Netflix and Google $1 million for every act of free speech censorship they have taken part in. Moderators of Reddit who participated in any free speech censorship or politically charged bans will receive $10,000 fines per offense. More than 3 and criminal charges will be brought up. Undo the Federal Communications Act of 1996. Create a Fair Competition Act so 3 or 4 companies don't get to own all of our entertainment and the entire music industry. Fuck Spotify Act. Tax the fuck out all streaming services that act like a den of thieves. Fuck Wall Street and Robin Hood Act. Tax the living fuck out of these crooks. Fuck GM and Dodge Act. Tax the fuck out of their vehicles to be imported into the U.S. until they return manufacturing to the U.S. Create a Journalistic Integrity Act. No more fake news, clickbait, hit pieces or cancel culture. No more Billionaires Act. After you earn $1 billion you become an entity and corporation and are required to follow laws of responsibility. Legalize marijuana, DMT, psilocybin, LSD, MDMA and ketamine. The Paul Stamets Act. Clean our oceans and fuel our cities with renewable mushroom sources. Legalize cocaine, heroin and meth in small amounts. Pardon and release all people imprisoned for drug offenses. Create a Path to Redemption Act. All crimes are automatically expunged after 7 years or sooner if you sign up for the free course. Sex crimes harder rules but still eligible. And for-profit state-run homeless scams like in California. Build massive neighborhoods and cities for homeless reintroduction. Easy to get gov contracts. 1, 2, 3 Build. Huge fines for shoddy craftsmanship. Massive infrastructure rebuilding. Build advanced road equipment to rebuild our nation's highways. There are machines out there that can repave a road at 5-10 miles an hour. No more endless road construction. And all tolls for already paid roads. Audit every state that has tolls. Ramp up our trains and build tunnel highways with bullet trains. LA to NY in 3 hours. Prison reform. No more for-profit prisons. Fine all prisons and companies that utilized slave labor. All profits will be distributed to the workers of the profits. Dismantle the FBI and all intelligence organizations. Create one and only one intelligence organization that handles all domestic and foreign affairs. And the Fed. Back the US dollar by a cryptocurrency. And income tax for those making under $166,000. Boost the minimum wage on a sliding scale. Double unemployment benefits. No one wants to work for $7.25 an hour. And Obama-era student loan repayments. Student loan forgiveness. Fully paid student loans will be reported as triple to credit agencies. After all the Mexican cartel money is seized, all the billions from billionaires and Wall Street is taxed. Create a universal basic income. Then sell Mexico back to Mexico so they can rebuild their country. Create the No More House Flippers Act. The cornerstone of all inflation is housing. Houses cannot be resold within 7 years of purchase. Dismantle the MLS service and make a free open database of housing listings. Dismantle real estate brokers and use blockchain to sell real estate. Tear down the wall and start the moat. Make Canada pay for it. Create loans, grants and huge tax breaks for mining precious metals or manufacturing electronics and semiconductors.